This podcast is recorded on stolen and unceded Aboriginal land.
We acknowledge the First Nations and elders of this country, and we join their calls for justice.
Have you checked the Bureau?
What's the Bureau?
The Bureau radar?
I don't know what that is. Just
Tom.
speak English. What are you talking about?
The Bureau of Meteorology.
Oh, yeah, the BoM.
Tom, don't call it that. It's so uncouth.
I logged onto Twitter. I saw this story kicking around. I think I saw your tweet and some stuff, and I'm like,
I was like, I haven't tweeted, I feel. I haven't tweeted in like months, and then I'm like, I've got to tweet. Fired off a bunch of tweets. No one liked them. It was like an oversaturated Twitter feed that day, I feel. Too many bomb jokes.
okay, so the BoM, the Bureau of Meteorology, wanted to rebrand, had a big rebrand, didn't want to be called the BoM anymore, wanted to be given the respect it goddamn deserves and be referred to as the Bureau. Is that the vibe?
Mum, Dad, I've brought you here today because I no longer want you using that name for me. BoM, sweetie, what is it? Why not? BoM, we love your name. Everyone loves you as BoM. That's not my name. My name is the Bureau of Meteorology. Henceforth, I shall be referred to as that and as the Bureau in subsequent instances. Thank you.
My pronouns are the Bureau of Meteorology. They had a really expensive rebrand plan or something? Like they spent shitloads of money on a consultation?
Initially, they were saying it was like a $72,000 payment for the PR firm who, looked at this rename thing. But the full rebrand, $220,000 revealed by Guardian Australia. That's an 18-month rebrand, including to update their visual style and logo, conduct research. They should have just tweeted it and seen what happened. Develop pull-up banners and support media engagement. The media engagement didn't go so well, though, did it?
So how did they fuck up the roll-up so bad? How did that actually happen?
So what happened? Okay, yeah. So they sent out this media release. I think that part of the problem is the media release was targeted to media outlets. It was just like, in your style guides, could you please, when reporting on things that we say, refer to us as the Bureau of Meteorology rather than the BoM, for clarity and because we're really important. And we want everyone to understand that when we say there's a cyclone coming, they should take us seriously. And then at the bottom of the release, they're like,
every time they do a weather alert, they say, hey, there's a cyclone or flooding coming, according to the BoM.
Yeah.
I'm too busy laughing to gather my belongings or family to get to evacuate.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's just too funny.
I'm only going to listen. Is there some sort of bureau that can give me some real information around here? No. But then at the bottom of the release, they've got, because of this, we're going to change our Twitter accounts, which are all BoM, blah, blah, BoM Queensland, BoM New South Wales. We're going to change them to like the Bureau, all of these. The motherfuckers had not secured those Twitter handles before sending the media release out. Obviously, everyone, a bunch of people snapped up those handles on Twitter and made, hilarious BoM accounts that were not actually the BoM. And the BoM was like, oh, ruh-roh. How are we going to get these handles? We look like fucking idiots. And everyone was like, well, this is shambolic. You guys are really dumb.
Your whole job is predicting things. How did you not see this coming?
I mean, to be fair, they're pretty bad at predicting things. Meteorology, kind of a fake science. Let's get into that later.
That's a hot take. That is a red hot take.
Oh, well, it's always wrong. They say it's going to rain, doesn't rain,
And if they can't predict next week's weather, how can they tell us what's going to happen in 2050? That's what I say.
Well, it's not. That's different.
No, that's exactly what you said, and that's what I say as well.
That's what I said. This is a climate denial podcast. And then, so everyone was like, what are you doing? You fucking losers. And then, a day or two later, they go, okay, sorry, you can call us the BoM. Never mind that we've just wasted $220,000. You can call us the BoM. We're fine with people calling us the BoM. We just wanted you to take us a bit more seriously. Obviously, we failed. I guess we're just a fucking joke to you. I'll be in my room.
I believe in government-run services. I believe in the public service. But I do absolutely want to fire every single corporate, PR-facing
the consultants.
Part of all the consultancy industrial complex should be absolutely be shaved off the entire public service, hands down. I remember at ABC, the ABC, they turned the promos department into ABC Made, and they brought in all these commercial advertising people to work in there, right? And so then they were in charge of making promos for your program. and they actually had final say on everything. So you had no creative control over like the promos we started doing for Tonali, which were dog shit in my opinion. And it's just like we could give feedback on how these would go, but ultimately they got to sign everything.
That's why you were cancelled. That's why no one watched.
Yes, that's the main reason why no one watched, why we were cancelled. Yes,
that's why.
Guys, here at Tonightly, you need to call us funny, okay? We're rebranding as funny.
Talk about the Greens, that bunch of idiots.
You vote Greens, you get extreme.
They don't like Australia. They're against our institutions. They're against what this wonderful country has become.
Frankly, I've always found the Greens to be a real serious danger to Australia.
Serious danger to Australia.
Hello, we're the Bureau of Serious Dangerology. My name's Emerald. That's Tom Ballard. We do a podcast about green politics in Australia, not in official capacity, just as ourselves. And that's why if you like, you can keep calling us serious danger. We don't care.
It's fun.
Yeah. Our show is made possible with the help of the Green Institute, and it's produced by Michael Griffin. If you want to help pay Michael Griffin's wage, which he needs to live and continue helping us do this show, you should become a patron. We have a bunch of new patrons again this week. Thank you so much. We love you all. Their names are Katie, Bridget, Phil, Libby Serves. I assume a reference to Libby serving looks, Libby Watson-Brown. Nathan, Talisha, Roxy, Relly, I fucked up the name. Rel, Henry, Jane, Daniel, Melinda, Blake, Peter, Lauren. Please send me a voice memo on Instagram, RELLE, of how to actually pronounce your name properly, and then I'll get it right. We said last week we want to get 500 by the 26th of November, Tom's birthday, the Victorian state election. We have now 454 patrons. So we need, if my maths are correct, 46 more patrons. Could it be you? Could your name be
you?
Completely butchered on our next episode? Who knows?
Dreams come true, guys. If you're already a patron, great work. Thank you very much. If you can't afford to be a patron, that's okay. You can just spread the word of our show so that more people can hear about it and go, holy fuck, what's this show? I got to give these people money.
They're not an official Greens Party podcast? Fuck off. This sounds amazing. What did you say? Serious Danger it's called. Okay, yeah, I'm going to listen.
I got roasted last week. I was at the AMC, the launch of the Brunswick and Melbourne campaigns of the Victorian Green state election. Shout outs to Dr. Tim Reid and Ellen Sandell, two great candidates. Get them back, please. But there was a Sprout function on the screen behind me. So I'm standing in front of the screen and there's that Sprout thing where people can donate live in the room. So you text the number and you pledge money and stuff. Yeah. And so the fundraising total's like going up behind me. But then you can also put a name as to like who the pledge comes from. And, of course, you can write something funny in there if you so wish. So I'm standing in front of a screen saying, hey, everyone, give me some money so we can re-elect these great candidates. It's great. And then, of course, I'm getting heckled by the names of things that people are pledging on the screen. So it's like
what?
More money to get a better comedian. More money as long as Tom will acknowledge that Emerald's the funny one and serious danger.
Yes.
Stuff like this. Yes.
I love when people say I'm the funny one.
Yes.
That's my favorite.
Yes, we all find it very amusing. Yes.
Oh, that's great. I wish I was there.
When the stars make you drool, just like a pasta fazool, that's amore.
That's amore.
When you dance down the street with a cloud at your feet, you're in love.
You're in love.
But look, let's fucking get into it, I reckon.
Lydia. We're talking about Lydia.
Oh, boy.
And Dean Martin.
Dean Martin, the singer? Cool.
No, you idiot.
Oh, it's a different one.
Yeah.
Go on.
Okay, so picture this. It's Thursday. You're lying down on the couch because your back hurts. Your name's Emerald. And someone says, hey, there's a media storm incoming. Look at this article. You open an ABC article. What's this? Lidia Thorpe failed to disclose a relationship with the former Rebels president, Rebels being the outlaw motorcycle gang, while on a law enforcement committee that looked at motorcycle gangs.
Now, when is this outlaw motorcycle gang? What does that mean? Does that mean that the gang is outlawed or they're just a gang of outlaws? Is that just the way we refer to motorcycle gangs? I actually don't know.
I was like, when I was preparing for this and I was thinking, yeah, what does that actually mean? And I actually don't know. Because, like, for instance, I mean, if you think about in Queensland, there were the laws like the Vlad Vicious Lawless Association, whatever, Newman laws that I think would have actually outlawed the existence of the gangs, right? So associating with members of them. But I don't know, what that means.
Okay.
Or does it mean that it's a gang that has a lot of outlaws in it, meaning like criminal, like people with convictions? Fuck, I don't know. Because not all of them, like a lot of...
What makes you an outlaw? Someone who has broken the law?
What makes you an outlaw? Doesn't it mean, isn't that what it means?
I guess.
Yeah, we're doing great so far. This is a really good start. What's an outlaw? Fuck, I don't know. Google it, mate.
Ooh, like what Adam said. A person excluded from the benefit or protection of the law. Oh, that doesn't make much help. Anyway, sorry. Go on.
Anyway, the point is, Lidia had this relationship with this guy, Dean Martin. Actually, before we go any further, Dean Martin, smash or pass?
Not quite my cup of tea.
I knew it wouldn't be your type.
I like Dusty Martin. I'd sleep with Dusty Martin for sure. Yeah, but Dean himself, not for me.
I reckon I would. I mean, I don't know how old he is. He's a bit old for me, but like, I like a good muscle, you know.
This is going to get clipped.
And he seems like a passionate guy.
This is the serious danger
Leave
take.
us in.
The hot goss.
He's single now. He and Lidia are just friends. If you're listening, Dean. Okay, fine. Okay. So
this is a really serious issue, Emerald. This is the worst thing that anyone has ever done in the history of Australian politics. So just come on. Just get sensible, okay?
Well, apparently so, because within like an hour of this article coming out, Adam calls a press conference. He stands up in front of the media and is basically like, look, Lidia fucked up. She showed poor judgment in failing to disclose this. And he says that he didn't know that she had this relationship with this person at the time that she was serving on this committee, and that she should have told him, and that he's asked her to resign, and that she has given him her resignation. Now, it's just occurred to me, should we read they have some fairly brief statements. Maybe we should read the statement that Adam gave and that Lidia gave. So
sure.
He says,
media raised with me matters concerning Senator Thorpe, which I wasn't aware of until the media raised them. I've since looked into those matters. I've asked Senator Thorpe for her resignation as Deputy Leader in the Senate, and I have received her resignation. As Leader, I expect my senators and MPs, especially those in leadership positions, to exercise good judgment. At a minimum, Senator Thorpe needed to disclose to me her connection to Mr. Martin, and her failure to do so showed a significant lack of judgment. Senator Thorpe says she understands this, so I now expect her to demonstrate better judgment going forward and in exercising her continuing portfolio responsibilities. I note also that Senator Thorpe has not held the Justice portfolio since the election. Senator Thorpe has important work to do on First Nations justice, including on progressing truth, treaty and voice, and I want her to be able to do that work.
So to be clear, if people have seen, people might have seen Lidia Thorpe issues her resignation or Adam's called for her to resign, that's just as Deputy Leader in the Senate. She still has a portfolio. She's still a senator. Lidia Thorpe said, Greens leader Adam Bandt has requested my resignation as Deputy Leader in the Senate, and I have given him my resignation. I accept that I have made mistakes and have not exercised good judgment. I will now reflect on this and focus on my important portfolio work, especially advocating for First Nations people. So were you surprised when you saw that she had resigned so quickly?
Was I surprised by that? I guess so. I guess I thought if there was going to be a blow up, I don't know. It's hard to determine whether Lidia recognises, like, I just don't know whether like, let's take her statement at face value. She recognises that she did fuck up and this was bad judgment by her, and therefore she sees that stepping down as Deputy Leader of the Senate is a reasonable response to this particular furor. I think that's let's say that that's true.
I think, and I want to get into what might have been happening internally, like, with Adam asking Lidia to resign and Lidia resigning a little bit later, but the stuff about acting secretly is certainly relevant. I think it's also relevant to lay out a few more facts. So Dean Martin, he was the president of this gang of the rebels until 2018. He stepped down as president in 2018. He has no criminal convictions. The other thing that he does do is advocate on First Nations issues and justice issues, particularly the deportation laws after his brother Shane Martin was deported to New Zealand. He's spoken out about the way that bikie gangs are criminalized solely by virtue of association and the disproportionate focus of law enforcement on bikie gangs and people who associate with them. So he stepped down in 2018. Lidia dated him briefly, as she says, in early 2021. She was on the committee from February 2021 to April 2022. So it's likely they were still dating when she was on the committee. Yep. But the point at which the staffer was raising issues was in later 2021. So this was like in August 2021 when they talk about the incident where she had received this information by virtue of her role on the committee about how the AFP surveils bikie gangs, and where they're saying that Lidia had a meeting with Dean in her office, and she was in Parliament, and basically the staffer was like, you need to disclose this. This is a real issue. Yeah, it's worth noting that the notes about that are from August. So that's after she's got this, after she's dating this person. Yeah,
it was a brief period of dating which continued as a friendship, right? And a collaboration on advocating on certain issues. That seems to be the way it goes. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So they're still friends. But again, like they could be friends.
And that's a great example for all of us. It's hard to remain friends with your ex, but I think that we should all take something. If anything, she's living her values that we could all try to emulate.
They consciously uncoupled. And that's, that's something to aspire to. But look, this story that came out in the ABC has obviously come from a staffer or even a couple of staffers. We know that, previous stories have come out with Lydia's former chief of staff, David Mejia Gonzalez, the email about the meeting that Lidia had with an Indigenous elder. And I think that, that former chief of staff is referred to in this article. That's another staffer that was working there. That clearly it's coming from a couple of places. And the issue that, the staff are basically saying that they were put in an untenable position because they felt this was a real risk. They advised Lidia that it was a real risk and she should disclose it. And she didn't want to do that. They said at least disclose it to Adam. They spoke to Adam's chief of staff about it. And it turns out apparently that Adam's chief of staff or his staff chose not to tell Adam about it. So there's a few issues, right? Like there's the potential conflict of interest. The first question is like, is it a conflict of interest for Lidia to have this relationship with someone who has connections with and prior involvement with an outlaw motorcycle gang when you're on a committee that's receiving confidential information about motorcycle gangs? I think, that's a potential conflict.
Yep.
Right?
Yes. I think I saw someone tweet that there is a relevant standing order when it comes to the Senate, which is conflicts of interest relate to like someone personally benefiting from the kind of information that they're being privy to when they're on a committee. So, for example, if the committee was looking at a company and the senator held shares in that company, obviously they would have to declare that as a conflict of interest. So this person's argument was that, technically in regards to the standing order that relates to it, that you could argue that Senator Thorpe didn't do anything wrong and that her behaviour wouldn't be captured by that particular standing order. I think a more broadly pub test, sniff test kind of vibe would suggest that for everything to be upboard and if there's nothing to hide there, a reasonable and responsible thing to do and the exercise of good judgment would include disclosing that relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is another thing that's worth noting about conflicts of interest that I think is often misunderstood when it comes to conflicts of interest, that conflicts of interest are common things that are expected to come up when you are in a position where you're receiving privileged information or you have, a particular level of power. There are often going to be conflicts of interest, but it's about managing that conflict of interest. And so I think that, for me, it's about the fact that, yes, she should have declared that and figured out how can I manage this? Do we need to put anything in place? There is a level of conflict of interest that is unmanageable, I think, that's untenable. Yeah. I don't really know whether this would have been, like whether it just meant that she couldn't do that work on that committee. But just by virtue of the fact that there was a potential conflict of interest, that to me is not the issue. And I think it's worth noting that that line as to what's an acceptable conflict of interest and what's an unacceptable conflict of interest is very class-based, like race-based, like it's very tied to an existing social and economic system that says that, for example, it is more acceptable to have a potential financial conflict of interest where maybe you, as you say, hold shares in something, or you have a connection with someone who has a economic interest in a particular industry. That's, I would say, politically understood as more acceptable than it is to, have a conflict of interest socially or with someone who has associations with people who have criminal convictions. And that's interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean that those conflicts of interest, those financial ones, are often perceived to be dealt with through disclosure, right? So you just disclose you've got these shares and then carry on as you are, no worries at all. Disclose that this company donated to your political party and then carry on. It's like, no, fuck off. Yeah. That's not it. That's what actually. And some people were saying that Lidia Thorpe should never have served on this committee, that it was inappropriate for her to be even on this committee when she had this relationship, which I think, yes, we could say is a bit nonsense. Keeping in mind again that Dean Martin left this position, stopped being the head of the rebels in 2018. So that's kind of important to flag too.
Yeah. And so as this story is unfolding on Thursday, and keeping in mind, we should say, we're recording this on Friday afternoon, right? So this just happened yesterday. I had expected that, maybe the story will ebb, flow, change, develop over the next few days. Having said that, now that Liz Truss is resigning, I'm not too sure, because I think that everyone has a new shiny. She
also fucked a bikie, I believe. She fucked a bikie and has been removed as leader of the Tories.
A shiny new toy, yeah. So who knows? Maybe this is like everything that's happened will have happened on Thursday, but the way, the speed at which this story developed on Thursday afternoon was like fascinating to me, and the way that the Twitter discourse changed, I was like, this is so interesting, right? Because when it first broke, I saw a bunch of lefties, like obviously I follow, my Twitter feed is all lefties. It's often like it's green sympathetic folks, and a lot of people saying this is really bad. Like, oh shit, Lydia should have disclosed this. It's fairly like, wow, what a fuck up. This really looks bad for Lydia. And then over the course of a few hours, it starts to turn as more people come out sort of in defense of Lydia and pointing out that this is another case where perhaps a double standard is being applied, and that this would not, the response would be very different if this were a white man, if the nature of the conflict of interest were different, if it was someone in a major party. So it goes from this kind of like, Lydia needs to respond. And I mean, maybe that is because she responded so quickly and resigned that I think if she had refused to resign, it could have gone a different way. Yeah. Right? Sure. Like we may not have ended up with all these people then saying, like, feeling as though wanting to defend her. Yeah, because it just happened so quickly.
Yes, well, I mean, it's hard to pass, right? Like, there are some people who say that Lydia did nothing wrong whatsoever and are trying to prosecute that case. I don't think, it sounds like you and I don't sort of fall in that particular category. And there is the broader racial analysis of what's going on here, a race-conscious analysis of this and class-conscious analysis of this, which is, this, as we've discussed before on our previous episode when we were talking about the bad headlines surrounding Lydia, you cannot ignore gender and race and class in these conversations necessarily. And then you have fucking psychos. Peter Dutton saying,
I've never seen anything like this in my 20 years in Parliament.
You're like, fuck off, bro. Fuck off. And it's, I think it is also difficult because this is a story about, a bad thing that might have happened. Like, there is absolutely no evidence whatsoever that any information was leaked, that anybody did benefit from this relationship, etc., etc.
That's worth noting.
Yes. So that's
on the record.
That's important. Now, again, as we've said before, the Greens hold themselves to a certain higher standard. People expect us to hold ourselves to a higher standard. This was not good behaviour. I would have thought that losing a leadership position was completely fair enough. But of course, the batshit right wing want her to go completely from politics and think that she should leave. And so I think a defence of Lidia Thorpe, to the extent at which you can say that some of these calls and some of this ferocious response is ridiculous and should be countered and shouldn't be accepted, and say, no, it's ridiculous to get her to resign as an elected official over this. But while at the still time maintaining the position that she did something wrong, she was promptly dealt with. And I think Adam took a pretty strong position on that pretty swiftly. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting. So the speed at which she resigned, that doesn't normally, other parties don't do that, right? Like normally it'll take fucking, a long period of pressure and like pushing them to resign before they maybe once in a blue moon someone resigns. But you look at, just last week when we were talking to Larissa and we were talking about the Section 44 resignations back in 2017, as soon as they found out, basically, as soon as Scott Ludlam and Larissa found out that they had dual citizenship, they just stood up and just resigned. No one even externally had to call for them to resign. They just did it. And that's because, there is this thing, the Greens are always susceptible to, we hold everyone to such a high standard that we have to hold ourselves to a really high standard. And when it comes to integrity issues and disclosures of conflict of interest, I would say that's why that was applied here, is because if there was a conflict of interest that another MP had failed to disclose, we probably would be saying, we might even call for them to resign. I think it's interesting. Yeah, so in that article that first came out, the ABC article said at the end, this is what it closed on. It said the staffers say they are speaking out because they believe the Greens leadership has not followed its own rules for handling complaints against senators and that the party must hold itself to a higher standard. And I can't believe this closing line. One told the ABC, the thing with being holier than thou is that you have to live your values. There's no option for you but to do the right thing.
Jesus.
Just, first of all, wow, way to fucking adopt the major parties' rhetoric about the Greens and the right's rhetoric about the Greens. But, there's this thing about we can't have a double standard for the Greens. And yet in our political system and in the media, we absolutely have a double standard being applied to the Greens and being applied to Lidia. And you're right, all those things that you were just saying. I think one of the first tweets that I saw really saying this was from Elizabeth Flynn. The handle is FlyInGenie1. They said, look, I love good governance, integrity and ethics, but we can't deny that race, gender, class and power are playing out here publicly. White men from ALP and Libs can just write out these kinds of perceived conflict of interest, and actual ones too, in a way that black women can't. Someone who really then, as you say, there's kind of a spectrum of views on this. And at one end is folks who are very strongly coming out in support of Lidia and saying that, she shouldn't have had to resign, and really criticizing Adam and the Greens for asking her to resign. I think this thread from Chelsea Watergo, who we've had on the show, is really good. She says, the violence intensifies for sovereign black women who dare occupy leadership positions in settler institutions. It has real back of the bus energy, accessorize and authorize, but at the end of the day, know your place. The irony, she says, is that the Greens have capitalized far more from hashtag associating with Lidia, which then became a hashtag where people were tweeting things in support of Lidia, capitalized far more from associating with Lidia than she has from them and any supposed political cost attached to recent events. Interested to see whether this changes the party line when it comes to voice and treaty, because the association between that and this is what's really questionable in all of this. And this is where when we start looking at the kind of internal dynamics and the commentary on the fact that Adam has asked Lidia to resign, I think it gets really interesting. And I think it's particularly interesting where, as you say, so Dutton and the Libs are saying Lidia should resign from Parliament entirely. Labor wants Adam to explain, as the leader of the Greens, why he didn't know. That's the issue that they're taking. They're like, why didn't Adam, as the leader, know about this?
Yes.
What do you think about that? Don't you? I think it says a lot about the way that people frame these issues and politics and party politics.
I saw that. I don't know all the conventions or the rules or the expectations of politicians when it comes to this stuff. You would know a lot more about that than me. Adams, I know, and I know that many ministers, there's this ministerial responsibility thing. If something fucked happens in your portfolio or your department and you're the minister, the convention of ministerial responsibility says, well, that happened under my watch, therefore I'm responsible. I don't know if those same kind of expectations apply to politicians and their staff. But if someone comes to your chief of staff and to tell them some information and the chief of staff doesn't pass that on to you, I don't know to what level of responsibility you have over that. Though I do understand, people are expressing concern, some of it good faith, some of it bad faith, that he's throwing his chief of staff under the bus here.
Yeah.
But it seems pretty clear to me that he didn't agree with the chief of staff's decision. And I also don't think we have an understanding as to what the reasoning behind the chief of staff's decision. Why wouldn't you take that potential issue to Adam to at least see what he thinks? Isn't that your duty as his chief of staff?
He says that he thought that it was dealt with effectively. Like,
right.
His claim is that he understood after that conversation with staff from Lydia's office that they were going back to Lidia and that it was dealt with. And so you would be like, well, I don't necessarily need to tell Adam. I do think that it says a little something about the dynamic with our federal MPs that's not something that their chief of staff would tell Adam. I think that's like a bit strange, but I don't think – I think that there's this angle that I see – our political opponents and the media have been trying to pursue with Lidia in particular, where they try to wedge Adam and Lidia, and they try to paint this or create this narrative that Adam is out of control of his own party, that he doesn't have control of his MPs, and particularly he doesn't have control of Lidia. And I think that in itself, like, I think there are some really cooked undertones to that. I don't think it's a coincidence that we're talking about the idea that this white male leader of a party should be able to control this, crazy radical black woman, and that she's uncontrollable. I think there's some racist narratives going on there. But at the same time, I think then the critiques of Adam or of the party's response where they're like, why does Adam then stand up in front of the media and say, I've asked Lidia to resign and it's all about Adam telling her to resign? That's, that feels a bit icky to me. But from my perspective, I would be like, actually, no, it is Adam's job to front the media during a crisis and to answer their questions and to steer the ship and face that heat so that Lidia doesn't have to. I actually think, forcing Lidia to get up and do a press conference in that moment would be fucked up, because it is Adam's role to protect the party and be that figurehead. So I think there's good reason for that approach to this, to be like, Adam is holding a press conference as the leader of the party. Whether he should have asked her to resign, I don't know. And I don't know, like, I also think, and I have no insight into, like, I have no insider kind of track knowledge of what went on behind closed doors in this regard. But I suspect the speed at which that press conference happened and Lidia had confirmed that she had offered Adam her resignation indicates to me that they were in agreement pretty quickly in a conversation. Because if Lidia hadn't wanted to do that, I don't think that could have been resolved in an hour or two, to the extent that Adam can then get up and front a press pack about it. It sounds to me like she agreed.
I mean, it must all have been considered in the broader context of this string of stories that we've had around Lidia Thorpe, right? That broader context of what's been going on. As we discussed on the previous episode, some of it bullshit, some of the tenor of it and some of the hyperventilating reaction to it way over the top, and some other serious issues that we think are bad, some of it being interpersonal issues that should be dealt with between two adults and don't actually need to be reported and discussed and debated in the national media, and pale in comparison to the issues actually facing this country and the kind of shit that Lidia Thorpe is fighting for. But I think all of that must play a role. I think it must also be said, what does the deputy leader of the Senate do? I don't I don't know how.
Well, but that's a good point. I mean, not to name the fucking elephant in the room.
If she were to be stripped of her portfolios, for example, if she were to be stripped of, like, First Nations justice or what have you, now you're talking about
that's really significant.
And that's obviously what people want. Marsha Langton was out saying that Lidia Thorpe should go, and she's doesn't have good judgment and she can't be trusted to advocate for the party's position on First Nation issues. Oh, there was also a quote, I don't know if you saw this.
You can't get briefings from law enforcement agencies by day and be in bed with bikies at night.
Something fucking disgusting like that.
Wow.
Like, fuck off, you arsehole. But yeah, that's clearly playing into it too.
Anyone who is arguing that Lidia is not the best person in the party to advocate for First Nations rights and to, like, work on that portfolio is full of shit. She's fucking incredible at it. And that's where I'm like, I think Chelsea Watego is absolutely right that we have gained more from having Lidia in the party than she has gained from being in the party. I imagine that if I were Lidia, I would be like, yeah, I hope she's okay, I guess is what I mean, because she is just under a relentless fucking shitfire of attacks from the media and from the major parties and from our political opponents in a really personal and awful way. And yet she is still fucking kicking goals for this party and has made it so much better. So yeah, it's like she absolutely should still hold that portfolio.
But I don't think it's fair to paint the Greens as if they've abandoned Lidia or thrown her under the bus. I think it's also true that Adam and the leadership have stood by her through some pretty difficult times and have seen through and weathered some of that culture war bullshit nonsense and have celebrated the fact that she's part of the team. I think that's certainly true. There's also some terrible reporting going on. And I also, there was stuff like Lidia Thorpe alone has completely changed the party's position on truth and like not bothering to look into how Greens parties decided, like democratically elected by the membership.
We have a fucking First Nations network.
Yeah, or the First Nations network, which I've never seen reported on or really discussed in any serious way. And it's like you actually need that buy-in from First Nations members of the party to change policy, actually. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's right. The media, well, I mean, what I'm curious to know is, do you think that if it weren't for the kind of string of incidents and media stories about Lidia in the past few months, that she maybe shouldn't have resigned or wouldn't have been asked to resign for this particular instance?
I mean, it's hard to separate it, of course. It is part of the mix. It is what it is. I do think that this particular incident falls into a different category.
I think so completely.
Yeah. So I think, and I would like to think that Adam would hold to that principle regardless. If Lidia Thorpe was all doing great and fantastic, we didn't have any of those other stories, and then this story broke, you would hope that the approach would be the same. That's for sure. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I would like to think that. Yeah, those previous things shouldn't play into this decision. And I guess you're probably right that they do. If nothing else, they should play a role in acknowledging the impact that this stuff is having on Lydia's mental health and just like ability to continue doing her job. Maybe that should be a factor here. But yeah, I don't know if it's worth going too much into the internal stuff, but I also am curious, like, what do you think about the fact that Lidia has staff who, I think the relationship that staff and MPs have should be like even just relationships in a party in general. There is an intense level of trust and loyalty that's required that has clearly been broken here. And I saw some people being like, I just really feel for the staff who were put in this position. Whereas I am like, I think it's fucked up that they would do this to Lidia. Like, what do you think?
It's complicated. I am very pro whistleblower, and I don't like shooting the messenger over certain issues. I think this leak again could be justified in that there is a public interest in knowing this, right? Like, and I think if this happened in another party, we would be saying the same, that a member on a certain Senate committee looking to an issue had a personal relationship that they did not disclose with someone even tangentially connected with the thing they were looking into, right? I think there's a reasonable public interest to go to the media with this if you went through all the processes and nothing worked out, right? The chief of staff didn't pass on the concerns to the leader of the party. I think that Lydia's disposition to say fuck you to the system, which we've discussed before, the same instinct that makes her call out our bullshit racist system, that makes her join protesters on the front line and call cops assholes because they're defending a system that locks up refugees. All of that rebel spirit, to use a phrase, pardon the pun, that makes us love her, makes us her a valuable voice in our political debate, may also inform her approach to some advice, for example. So I think these staffers were giving some pretty reasonable, informed advice that she should disclose this relationship that she chose to ignore on several occasions, according to this staffer's account. And I think that's not great. So, I am worried that there is a series of leaks about this staffer's or multiple staffers' time in Lydia's office that they are planning to go to the media with over a period of time. That's sort of the tactic that we've seen before, is that you slow drip these sort of stories over time that builds a narrative that, Lidia sucks, she can't be trusted, et cetera, et cetera. So that would be a concern. I understand there's a review into Lydia's the culture in Lydia's office that might be underway as well, and a review into what happened.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so there's kind of internal reviews and stuff that are going on. So yes, I am concerned about that.
Yeah, well, and that's what I mean. I think I want to be careful calling this or putting this in the same category as a whistleblower, because to me it's about what's the intention of bringing this to the media. Because when I think about whistleblowers, it's about bringing a systemic issue to the media with hopes of fixing it or stopping this thing from happening. Yeah. Whereas the only objective that I can really see, if I gave benefit of the doubt, maybe it's that, Lydia's office culture and her judgment is reviewed somehow internally, but given that that's already happening and you could do that in other ways, I'm not too sure. To me, it seems like the objective is to bring Lydia down and to, paint a negative narrative about her and even potentially get her out of Parliament. Yep. So I'm to me, that's not really whistleblower area. That's someone doesn't like.
Even on this particular issue, I mean, putting the other internal conflicts aside, the interpersonal disputes that we've discussed previously, you think even going to the media on this particular issue, this conflict of interest one?
Yeah, I guess maybe they were well, I can't directly contact Adam. I've tried contacting his staff, so this is the only recourse I have left. But I'm because the committee has already done its work. Lydia's no longer on the committee. It's a thing in the past, right? So what is the purpose of bringing this to the media?
Right.
I don't know. To me, it seems like they want to hurt us electorally. And I saw that, you posted this, you put this tweet in the show notes from, I believe Eloise is a friend of the show. She's a friend of me, bloody great door knocker Eloise. And she was talking about whether political attacks, particularly personal ones in the media, make a difference to how people vote. And polling that was conducted, she says, in the wake of the Cooper stuff in 2019. I thought we also, though, found this in 2020 with the state election when there were these really serious attacks on the Greens in South Brisbane by, former staff, former candidates, bad actors, infiltrators, and even a journalist who did one of the most shocking pieces of quote-unquote reporting that I've ever fucking seen by taking a Mean Girls quote out of context and pretending that it was a Greens volunteer using a slur against Jackie Trad. Absolutely fucking disgusting. Anyway, but we found from door knocking, and apparently, this, as Eloise says, she says, I remember the research the Greens did in the aftermath of Cooper 2019, how it turned out that hit pieces don't affect the way the electorate voted. Their main objective or effect was demoralising our volunteers. Yeah. And we do this, I don't know if other states do this, but since our experience in 2020, we in the Queensland Greens do or have done a couple of trainings or sessions about political attacks and preparing our volunteers and our members for political attacks. And that's the number one lesson, is that the objective of these is, if they're smart, it's not for voters, because a lot of voters, I would actually hazard, even though this was a massive story yesterday, a lot of people won't have seen this or they won't remember it, but it is to split up volunteers. It's to split up the membership, to cause disunity internally and to demoralise us, because they know that for the Greens in particular, our volunteers and our members are our greatest resource, and we absolutely need everyone to be hyped up and ready to fight for the party and fight for our platform, rather than arguing about how we dealt with some internal issue and what this means. I think it's a really good thing to remember.
Totally, yeah. And again, I mean, I've seen some replies to this tweet saying, well, it's not really a hit piece when she admitted to not disclosing a relationship with an ex-bikie boss. So again, it's a tricky line to walk and to pick it all apart, but it's at the heart of these things, there might be a story about something not great that happened, but the attention that it's given, the import that is placed on it, the conclusions that people will draw from those particular instances, and the wider judgment they'll make about the Greens' ability to represent anyone or to be taken seriously or what they're fighting for. That's the hit piece. That's the job that's that, as you say, is used to just beat us down and demoralize people. It's just sort of, this happened. Ipso facto, you can't take the Greens seriously on any issue. Fuck them all off. They should get out of politics straight away. And the reporting on this was insane. I quote tweeted fucking Paul Bongiorno, who tweeted a serious question. Does the Greens political party do any candidate vetting?
Greens political party, ding, ding,
why
ding.
would you call us the Greens political party? And it's just like, you're a fucking journalist. You could actually answer that question, and you would find that the internal you could ask us, the internal processes for selecting candidates is better than any other party in Australian politics.
Any other party. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
And yes, everyone's been vetted. Everyone has to go through a fucking ridiculous vetting process now, thanks to all the Labor attacks on social. Yeah. And has to win the support of members in order to be pre-selected as a member every single election, by the way. So fuck you, Paul Vangiano. How about that?
It's so stupid, yeah. And it's like, I do think I would categorize this as a hit piece, given that someone has deliberately like sprung a very negative media piece on the Greens, and particularly the way that it is designed. Like any good hit piece is to create a narrative, like to be successful, it needs to undermine Greens principles. And so what this does is like the Greens talk about integrity, and yet they don't even disclose conflicts of interest themselves. What it was in 2020 with us in Queensland was, you know, the Greens say that they're all about gender equality and anti-sexism, and yet they're using sexist slurs. Apparently we weren't, by the way. You know, that's it's always, it has to go against our principles. And so I think I categorize it as a hit piece. I think it's interesting to see, like I think the response from the party has been about as good as it could be. I think it was swift. And I think that the fact that I assume you got this, I think all Greens members would have got an email from the conveners of the party either last night or this morning, I saw, saying, you know, I'm sure that it's obviously not, no one likes to read about shit that's happening in your party via the media. I know that this is a shock. We're sorry that this is happening. Here are Adam and Lydia's statements, you know, and providing a bit more context and kind of bringing us all along. Because, yeah, I think that if the Greens are smart about this, they will recognise that the biggest risk is that the party becomes divided internally, that members become demoralised, that members feel like they don't know what's happening, and they don't feel part of this shared project because there are these kind of group of people making decisions at the top that they don't understand and that the media are commenting on, and they feel left out from that. So I don't think that has happened so far. I think the response has been good. I think it's fucking shitty, and who knows what will be next. What fucking attack is coming next? I guess we just, fucking keep holding on and weather the storm, because to lose Lydia would be a fucking incredible loss for the party.
Yeah. No, that should not happen. And I think Lydia's good at this. I think lots of members are really good at this too. Always, as much as possible, reorienting and refocusing back on what you're actually fighting for. And I think Stacey Timms, who's a fantastic Victorian Greens member who talks about this a lot, is just sort of saying, if you're more outraged by this than you are about Aboriginal deaths in custody, or the domestic violence committed against women, or the way the First Nations rights are overruled every single fucking day in this country, or colonialism, or our inability to do anything about this racist colonial structure that destroys First Nations people's lives and keeps them oppressed, then come on, fucking buckle up. Recognize this for what it is.
Yeah,
if someone fucks up, then fair enough, you wear that political debate. But the idea that this is the be-all and end-all, the most important issue facing anyone today, that's bonkers. And you've got to see through that and hold your head high.
Okay.
Do you reckon Adam will ever fire us? He'll have to do a press conference to officially distance himself from the serious danger fund.
From serious danger. Oh, it's going to happen at some point, right? Like, how is it not already?
Well, they try. Yes, they've tried that before. I do remember, like they'd go to Labor people being like, Friendly Geordie said this, and you've been associated with him. What do you think about that?
Okay. Hey, guys, have you heard of the Kill Myself of Compassion? That's not actually what Tom is doing a fundraiser, and the URL is KMS of Compassion.
I haven't heard KMS as a acronym that often. Yeah.
Are you serious?
I haven't heard it that much. No. And certainly the people at the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre are not across all the latest social media acronyms because they're too busy helping people seeking asylum and refugees through the fantastic work that they do. Ha ha.
What is the fantastic work that they are doing, and what role are you playing, and how can people help?
Well, as I see, people know it's in Footscray. It's not right near my house, so I appreciate that. And they do fantastic work giving people food and helping them with housing and advocating for their cases, providing them support, empowering them. They're fantastic. The ASRC do amazing work indeed. And this Kilometres of Compassion thing is on Sunday, November the 20th. it's like it started last year during lockdown. It's like a fun run or a physical activity, except of course everyone was just sort of isolated last year, so everyone just did it off their own bat. So you choose what physical activity you'll do. You get people to sponsor you, raise a bunch of cash. That supports the great work the ASRC is doing. I'm going to ride from my house in Footscray to the Melbourne Immigration Transit Accommodation, MITRA, in Broadmeadows, which is about 26 kilometres there and then back. That's my plan.
That's a long way.
There's a really long way, and I'm actually quite concerned that I won't be able to do it and that I need to be less fat in order to do that. So I will be training.
Are you like training? You're like preparing?
I ride my bike a lot, so I do a lot of riding. But
this motherfucker lives in Melbourne. Listen to him.
If you want to sponsor me, I'd appreciate that too. Kill myself of compassion, asrc.org.au/page/Tom Ballard. We'll put the link in the show notes. And any money you can spare to do the great work. Or if you want to do it yourself and raise some cash too, then you're very welcome to do it. Anyone can register.
Cute.
I also put in the big long read on Lidia Thorpe too, which Lidia herself and some other people have been pointing to. There's been some extensive hit pieces on Lidia Thorpe, but if you want to find out a little bit more about where she's coming from, The Guardian did this piece called Staunch or Stubborn, Lidia Thorpe on the voice, the treaty and real power that might be worth a read. There you go. There's your action. Read some stuff.
Go for it. And you should also go have a read and then add your own of our reviews on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening now. As I understand it, the algorithm or whatever it is, if you review us, if you give us a good review, more people are going to listen to us. More people listen to us, more support we get, helps us get closer to Greens government, direct line. We're working on the graphs. It does help us get more listeners and maybe more Patreon subscribers and help us pay Mike, help keep the show going. If you're not already a Patreon subscriber, please consider becoming one. All the info is at seriousdangerpod.com. Also, all the links to our socials are there. We're on at seriousdangerau on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. We post little clips. I posted a photo of. Did you see the photo, Tom, of me gazing adoringly at Larissa back in 2017?
Yes,
very cute. Yeah, my friend Reed sent that to me. I went to that event solely because I was like, Larissa might be here. And yeah, if you have other thoughts for us, pictures, voice memos, videos, words, things like that, just codes, like little riddles, email us. hello@seriousdangerpod.com.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Take some. You do the closer in you're like, snap, this is a script. I'm like, one time I was a little girl and it's led me to this place. Bye.
Bye.
Serious danger to Australia.